Welcome back to the KIX 96.5 Morning Show. The Hollywood Allstars are the brainchild of Grammy-nominated songwriter, producer, keyboardist Steve Gaspar. Steve has performed with James Brown, B.B. King, Peter Criss from KISS, and others. Their debut EP, Field of Grace, is out now, and it's awesome. We're excited to have Steve on the show. First, Steve, thanks so much for coming on.
Jeff, I can't thank you enough. To you and all the KIX 96.5 family, we love you guys, and it's really our pleasure to be able to speak with you a little bit about Field of Grace.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about the EP, but first, congratulations. You guys were up for this opening act, which you got sixth, which I think is pretty good for a band that, just had their first EP come out.
Oh, you know what, Jeff? We were really, really thrilled. I mean, it had started out in a field of 58. And when we hit the top 20, we're amazed. But then it went from 15 down to the top 10. We hit number 6. And, it's really kind of a challenge with a 13-piece band, especially to secure an opening act slot. I mean, obviously headliners are usually occupying most of the tech and the stage and so forth. So we were thrilled to even get as far as we did. But thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, tell us about the band, because this was like a COVID project. How did it all get started?
Well, you know what? It was a passion project of mine, Jeff. I mean, after having been in the business for years and years, had this brainstorm about putting together this, I call it my traveling circus, this huge band with live horn section, Hammond organ, singers, and I started calling in a bunch of favors from friends of mine and artists that I had, toured with or recorded with, never dreaming that a couple of years later I'd be here talking to you, telling you I've got the horn section from the Rolling Stones, the lead singer from the Tower of Power, the bass player from the Johnny and Edgar and Winter Group. I mean, it goes on and on. I am supremely lucky and blessed to be able to tell you I'm surrounded with some incredible talent on this project, and it really is a thrill.
Yeah, you must be a nice guy, Steve, because how do you get did anyone say no to you when you reached out to them?
Well, Jeff, it's a little bit of a crazy idea, especially in the economic climate of the music business now, where everybody's cutting back. Funds are tight. There's a lot of competition for your entertainment dollar, and the idea of coming out with this big band, everybody sort of patted me on the back and said, "We're with you. If you can make this work, more power to you." We ran in and recorded this EP, and within a 3-month time, it was picked up, but we got a 3-year record deal out of the gate, which, I think that speaks a lot to the music and obviously the talent that's involved in the project, for sure.
Yeah, because, you just mentioned it. Deco Entertainment, Warner Music Group, come and sign you right away. Were you shocked? You had to be a little surprised.
Oh, well, very pleasantly so. I mean, obviously, you're a songwriter. You put your passion into your writing, and you hope everyone loves it as much as you do. But a lot of times you don't get that validation, especially so quickly. So, this was proof to me that we definitely have something here, and we're on the right track to doing something. So I'm very excited about the prospect of what's going to happen.
Yeah, and how did it work? I mean, with 13 people, you got to keep everybody happy. How hard was it writing these songs to get everybody involved or to keep everybody involved?
Well, I am the chief songwriter for the project. I mean, songwriting is something I've done my whole life. I was signed to the Columbia Records when I was a teenager, so writing is a big part of my existence. And, the difficult thing, Jeff, is with a band this size and with all these talented people, even in the songwriting phase, you want to give everyone a chance to shine, from the vocals to the horn section to the guitar player. So I was very quite carefully thought out in constructing the song that it was going to be the kind of project where everyone would be excited to play the songs.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned it. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Steve, because you said you're a songwriter. You got signed when you were a teenager. Is that what you primarily did, was just write songs for different people? Is that how you've worked with everybody?
Yes, keyboard player, songwriter. I mean, I'm a hired gun in the keyboard player world. I mean, I've done sessions for a lot of different people. I'm primarily a Hammond organ piano player. I was classically trained on piano. And, as a teenager playing with all the different garage bands that I played with, I got involved in writing and met a record producer when I was very young. His name was Paul Lecca. A lot of people may or may not know the name, but Paul produced Harry Chapin's Cats on a Cradle album. Paul wrote the song Na Na Hey Hey, which is still played to this day on a lot of sporting events. So Paul was very involved in the business and really taught me the craft of writing and was, my mentor when I was in my late teens. and got me very much involved in the songwriting aspect. But I'm still a songwriter, keyboard player, and have spent my life doing that.
Yeah, because, I mean, some of the names you throw out, James Brown, B.B. King, Edgar Winter, Peter Criss, were you writing songs for them or were you playing keyboards?
Those were all keyboard gigs I did, Jeff. I mean, the writing I started when I was signed to Columbia. On that very first project on Columbia Records was where I started doing a lot of the writing. But all of those other artists you mentioned, I still to this day, and most recently, right before COVID, was doing a short tour with Gene Cornish, who was the guitar player from the Rascals. And I adore that. I really do. I love playing. So obviously, if someone calls me to do a tour or a recording session, I jump at the opportunity. It's still something that I value equally as important as my songwriting and music production.
Yeah, well, and James Brown, you give a little nod to James with Living in America on the new EP.
You know, it's funny how that came about. The two people that wrote that song, Dan Hartman, who passed years ago, and Charlie Midnight. Charlie is an incredible songwriter-producer in his own right, who's worked with, in addition to James Brown, Joe Cocker, and the list is too long to even get into. But through social media, as the Hollywood Allstars started posting videos and stuff, Charlie, ironically, became a fan of the band. And we started communicating on social media, and when the idea came about of, our EP, it was going to be all original, but I somehow, Charlie and I got on the subject of that song, and I've always loved the song, and just felt that if we were going to do one cover song, the message, I think, of that song is probably more applicable to society today as it was in the 80s when it was originally released. And I thought it might be a little bit of a unifying factor for the country to be able to all of us pull together and still recognize what a great country we all live in. And, I think it turned out great. We did it, when I was producing it, I wanted to give enough of a tip of a hat to the original production and the song. But as you can imagine, it's no easy feat covering a James Brown song.
No.
You really run the risk of, coming up with something that sounds really corny. But fortunately, again, we're blessed to have Tommy Bowes on vocals who, made the song his own. And again, with the production, I think we brought it a little bit more up to date and gave it a little more of the power pack punch that the Hollywood Allstars are known for.
Oh, you knocked it out of the park. Living in America, if you grew up at all in the 80s or 90s, you definitely know the song. I think it was on Rocky or one of the Rockies.
Yeah, it was. Yep. I forget which Rocky 5 or whatever Rocky it was. But no, that was the song, and it was huge for a while.
Oh, it was huge. I think it still runs through my head sometimes.
Yep.
We're chatting with Steve from the Hollywood Allstars. Go check them out, thehollywoodallstars.net. They're on Facebook, Instagram, X. Their debut EP, Field of Grace, is out now. Well, Hollywood Allstars, but you live in Connecticut, Steve. Hollywood's your nickname. Tell us, how did you get Hollywood as the nickname?
Well, it's funny, Jeff. Years ago, I was running back and forth between the East Coast and the West Coast, and I think I was signed to do a short tour on the East Coast. I don't even remember who it was. But I was on the West Coast doing a couple of recording sessions, racing back to do a show that I was booked to do on the East Coast, came from the airport, drove to the theater, walked out on stage. I was still wearing my California Hawaiian pineapple shirt. Didn't even have time to change. The sax player turns around and took one look at me and goes, "Man, look at you. You look like you just flew in from Hollywood." He started calling me Hollywood, Jeff, and here we are all these years later, and it just stuck. And, it plays a lot into my personality. I love over the top. I love big, over-the-top kind of productions, which, again, speaks to the band.
Yeah.
But no, the Hollywood Allstars is the band. My publishing company is Hollywood Music East, and it's just something that's stuck with me all my life. And I guess we could be called worse things.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you mentioned it, this huge production. Listening to this EP, I mean, there's pop, gospel, country, rock. There's everything. Were you shooting for that? I mean, there's not a specific genre. Just have fun, make good music. What was the thought process?
Well, I think you just hit it on the head, Jeff. I mean, as a writer, I want the songs to be good. And I think that there certainly is no shortage of talent anywhere. I mean, you could go on YouTube, go on Spotify. There are incredibly talented people all over the place. But when you really get down to it, when the rubber meets the road, I think it's all about the song. And in writing the songs and crafting the songs, I was very aware that I wanted the songs to be good. I knew I had great players. But as a writer, I love all different kinds of music, and I guess, that kind of plays into what the CD ended up sounding like. Country music is a very big passion of mine, and, it's funny, we have attracted a couple of really strong country fans. I don't know if you'll know these names, of a dear friend of mine, a producer who's from Franklin, Tennessee, Keith Thomas, who worked with Amy Grant. He did Vanessa Williams' Colors of the Wind. Keith Thomas is a tremendous songwriter, producer in the country field who has become a fan of the band. Another gentleman, a guitarist, Michael Spriggs, who's worked with Leanne Rimes, Trace Atkins, has also been a very big supporter of the Hollywood Allstars. And the one song in particular, The River, all of these country friends of mine keep coming back to me going, that song. And I think it relates to the songwriter in people, which is why The River, I think, is a really strong, it's not blatantly country, but let's face it, the country market has evolved so much that it's not even really country anymore as it is country rock. And if you think of like a Keith Urban, there's a lot of good feel behind a lot of these new country artists. Jelly Roll. So I think The River has found a little bit of a home with country fans.
Yeah, for sure. And I heard a radio DJ say something a month or two back where country is like you can play about anything now because the genre's expanded so much. Yeah, like you said, it's pop, it's rock, it's everything. It's crazy how much it's blown up. And The River, we're going to play The River here in a minute. It's an amazing song. Field of Grace, the EP by the Hollywood Allstars, is out now. You've been around the business for a long time, Steve. What do you think's changed the most in music?
Well, Jeff, I grew up in the old days of having to get a record deal and going through the big machine of a major label and a record company and all of that stuff. And listen, I know a lot of artists feel that, and rightfully so, a lot of times I think some of those big record companies did take advantage of artists, but it really taught me the benefit of having a big machine behind you to really break an artist. The thing for me that's changed the most, everybody and their grandmother puts a record out now. If somebody says, I got a record out, I don't want to say that it doesn't mean anything, but the significance of it, I think, has diminished a bit. Where in the old days, if you said, I got a record deal, it really meant something. Now, the other side of that coin is everyone has the opportunity to put music out. It's diluted the market so much that it makes it difficult for everyone. I heard a number the other day that if you could imagine this, how many singles are uploaded daily to Spotify? The number you'll find it staggering. 46,000 songs a day are uploaded to Spotify.
Oh, I believe
now,
it. It's
when you
crazy.
think about that, the only chance an artist has for someone like the Hollywood Allstars, I'm eternally grateful to people like you who will give us the opportunity, perhaps, to break through on radio. I still think radio is a very important tool and a very significant part of the business, maybe more important now than it ever has been before.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy how much music is out there, and I keep telling people new music that you never even heard, and new artists that you really got to go search because radio's not giving them any love, and we try and give them some love right here on KIX 96.5. You're in Connecticut, Steve. Are you boating? You sitting on the beach? What are you doing out there?
Oh, God, Jeff, I wish I could tell you I'm out at the swimming pool with a martini in my hand, but unfortunately, no. I'm after our phone call, I've got a session that I'm doing today, a songwriting session to try to come up with more material for the band. It's beautiful here right now, and with the crazy stuff that's going on all over the country and even the world with the weather, and I know Florida's expecting another hurricane to blast them, and my shout out and love to all our friends in Florida. I'm lucky that Connecticut right now is probably one of the nicest places to be on the planet. The weather is gorgeous, and I'm working through it.
Yeah, it's tough. 13 members in the band. You guys have played some shows. Do we have any more live gigs lined up?
We're working on a couple right now. They're actually, for anyone that's interested, and it's all over YouTube, if you wanted to go on and see the Hollywood Allstars live. We do have a live video out of Living in America so people can get a little bit of a taste of what the band is all about. But we are booking a couple other things. But again, as I said, with 13 people, there's a lot of requirements in terms of, airline tickets, backline, theater, it's a difficult thing. But having said that, I do love it, and I'm certainly not giving up on it. And I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to have a few more shows to announce, certainly before the end of the year.
Yeah, two of the songs on the EP, and The River's one of them. Who's Frank that writes with you?
Frank Fielli is a very interesting songwriter friend of mine. Frank is I mean, for lack of a better way, I mean, he's sort of a younger contemporary Dave Matthews kind of guy. He's able to take an acoustic guitar and go on stage and entertain a crowd, and is a great songwriter in his own right. He just did an album in Muscle Shoals. Frank was opening shows for us for a while. Again, with a 13-piece band, we couldn't afford to give any stage space. There wasn't enough real estate to have a band open for us. So Frank would go up with a stool and his acoustic guitar and entertain a crowd of 500 people and do very well. Well, he and I started writing some songs together, and that's who the co-writer is on two of them.
Yeah, he's one of them on The River that you're going to be hearing in a second. And the music's huge to you, Steve. What does the music mean to you?
Well, I'll tell you, Jeff, this may sound corny. I feel kind of a responsibility to this sound, this music. People have compared us to Toto, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. This is, the days of big rock and roll bands from, the Joe Cocker, Mad Dogs, and the Englishmen days, and Delaney and Bonnie, and, the days that those big bands with background singers and a horn section and a Hammond organ, they're gone. You can't go anywhere and see that anymore. Even the major acts, the arena acts, are cutting back. So, in my little way, I figured this is my way of paying respect to this genre and trying to keep it alive and well and keep moving forward with it. The downside is we can't do a lot of shows simply for economic reasons. But, to answer your question, I feel a responsibility to want to try to keep this sound and this music alive.
Yeah, and horns, I mean, just listening to the EP, I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or what. Horns just make it another level. It does so much to music.
Yeah, and you know what, Jeff? When you see that live, I mean, it's great on the record, and I'm very proud of the record. I'm not even going to go there. I mean, to me, it's my blood, sweat, and tears. But when you hear it live, it's almost even more of an impact, because here you are with these, and they're incredible. The Uptown Horns, shout out to those four guys, Crispin, Arno, Larry, and Bob. They were and are amazing. It really does. I agree with you. It really brings another level. It takes the song to another dimension for sure.
Yeah, go and check it out. The EP is out now. It's the Hollywood Allstars, Field of Grace. Well, Steve, thanks so much for coming on.
Jeff, I can't thank you. And again, to everyone at the 96.5 KIX family, thank you all. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. It means the world.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Here it is. It's The River. It's the Hollywood Allstars. It's KIX 96.5.